Cost of living in Ethiopia. Hello explorers, welcome to another informative video presented to you by Displo, and thanks for watching. In this video, we shall be talking about the cost of living in Ethiopia. The housing, transportation, education, and health cost of any country is a great indication of the cost of living of any country. The cost of living in Ethiopia directly reflects the quality of life shown and how much is spent on housing, transport, education, and health. That is why, in this video, we shall examine the cost of housing, transportation, education, and healthcare in this country to determine the cost of living in Ethiopia. Cost of living is referred to the cost of maintaining a certain standard of living, such as cost of housing, bills, taxes, transportation, and purchases. The variation of the cost of living or factors that changes are expressed as a cost of living index. The cost of living calculations are also used to compare the cost of maintaining a certain standard of living in different geographic areas. The difference in cost of living with respect to different locations is known as the purchasing power parity. If you are new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any of our subsequent videos. Wages in Ethiopia. Although in Ethiopia there's no defined national minimum wage, a person working in Ethiopia typically earns around 8,900 Ethiopian birr, that's $211.46 per month. Salaries range from 2,250 ETB, being the lowest average, to 39,700 ETB, the highest average, and the actual maximum salary, which is higher. This is the average monthly salary, including housing, transport, and other benefits. Salaries vary drastically between different carriers. If you're interested in the salary of a particular job, search for specific job titles and know their salaries. A no-labor proclamation has been set up, which refers to minimum wages by referring to the issuance of a regulation of the Council of Ministers to determine the powers and responsibilities of a wage board. As such, minimum wages in the public sector are determined at national level, depending on the nature of service and level of skill of the employee, calculated on daily, hourly, weekly, and monthly basis. Cost of accommodation in Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, you can rent apartments, buildings, offices, houses, stores, and land for prices depending on the location. Renting an apartment in the city center would be more expensive. In particular cities like Addis Ababa, Nazareth, or Badar, just as in other cities in general, one-bedroom apartment can cost $498.73 and $288.16 outside the downtown. Three-bedroom apartments in the city center can cost $2,090 on the average. In general, cost of living in Ethiopia is on average 30.62% lower than in the United States and 17.3% higher than in the Central African countries like Cameroon. Also, renting in Ethiopia is 64.63% lower in cost than renting in the United States and 94.75% higher than Cameroon. The Ethiopians are mostly poor, and the feeling of wealth and prosperity are rather appropriate for the hotels, boutiques, and splendid offbeat nature of the region. The monthly rent in Ethiopia takes most of the income here, and the rest is divided between markets, transport, bills, and recreation. As much as 18.2% of income is set out to pay for the utilities. Cost of transport in Ethiopia. A vacation to Ethiopia for 1 week usually costs around 8,504 Ethiopian birr for one person, so a trip to Ethiopia for two people would cost around 17,008 ETB for 1 week. A trip for 2 weeks for two people costs 34,016 Ethiopian birr in Ethiopia. Traveling as a family of 3 or 4 people will greatly reduce the transport cost, as the price per person often goes down as kids' tickets are way cheaper and hotel rooms can be shared. If you travel slower over a longer period of time, then your daily budget will also go down. Two people traveling together for 1 month in Ethiopia can often share a lower daily budget per person than one person traveling alone for 1 week. Generally, for expats or tourists, transportation cost in Ethiopia is usually not cheap because of the need for guides and tours. Ethiopia is not super cheap to travel in, as many people may think. The fun part is that the food and drinks are relatively affordable and quite delicious. In many of the larger towns, a minibus service provides a quick, convenient, and cheap way of hopping around town, usually from around 2 ETB for short journeys. Conductors generally shout out the destinations of the bus, so when in doubt of your destination, just ask. Taxis operate in many of the larger towns, as well as including Addis Ababa, but would charge more for personal contract-based drives around town. Cost of health care in Ethiopia. Like most other African nations, Ethiopia's healthcare system includes primary health centers, clinics, and hospitals. But the clique is that only major cities have hospitals with full-time assigned physicians, and most of the hospitals are in the capital city of Addis Ababa. Access to modern healthcare is very limited and thus extremely costly, especially for specialized medical services, and in many rural areas it is virtually non-existent, so to say. In Ethiopian hospitals, an average of 15.55 ETB is spent a day for a bed, while outpatients spend twice less that amount on consultation. Specialist treatments are especially expensive, even for experts. Ethiopia's infant mortality rate is almost twice that of the world average, with health concerns such as respiratory infections, diarrheal diseases, and HIV and AIDS higher than the world average. Ethiopia technically has free healthcare for all, which is provided for by the government-run hospitals. The reality, however, is that there are not enough hospitals and most suffer from inadequate staffing, budget, and machinery. As such, experts will spend relatively exorbitantly for quality healthcare. Cost of education in Ethiopia. Public education is free in Ethiopia at primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. Primary education is offered for 8 years and is compulsory between ages 7 and 12. 4 years of secondary education comprising two 2-year cycles follow. It is an obvious reality that experts would prefer sending their kids to private schools, which especially is more expensive but more recognizable and standardized. Primary schools are generally accessible and there is a high rate of enrollment. In contrast, there is a shortage of secondary schools and enrollment declines at that level. The public school system in general has deteriorated from lack of adequate funding, teaching staff, facilities, and space. Overcrowding is also very common. Secondary school students in Ethiopia pay a relatively very low school fee. It is in the range of $320 to $450 per student per annum. In expensive private schools like Stanford School Ethiopia, a very unique private school in Ethiopia, both locals and experts who send their kids to nursery school are expected to pay a tuition fee per annum of $15,015, while it can go up to $16,692 in the tuition fee from primary years 1 to 6, and can also go up to $19,503 in as from the 7th year to 11th. Conclusion. Ethiopia is a nation with an identity grounded in the historic and contemporary roles of Christianity and Islam, and the independence of Ethiopia from foreign rule stemming from the various ancient Ethiopian kingdoms of antiquity. Through various trials and a poverty-stricken past, it has soared and has fast become an impressive African economic giant, having a mixed and transitional economy with a large public sector. Although compared to some other developing African countries, the standard and cost of living is quite high. The good quality of life in Ethiopia can, however, be enjoyed by anyone and everyone with a few dollars to spare. Earning an average wage of $943 a month, one can afford renting a well-furnished apartment for $498 and spend low budgets on feeding and transportation. Truth be told, experts who have health and housing insurances from their home countries enjoy better facilities than locals in Ethiopia. Healthcare costs are also affordable, except for specialized services which often demand more procedures and hence more expenses. It's also worth noting that Ethiopia is fairly safe when it comes to crime. All African nations will hold some degree of risk, and most of all, it's important to watch your back, not show outrageous displays of wealth, and be discreet in your valuables. There you have it, explorers. That was the cost of living in Ethiopia. Thanks for watching this video, and if you did enjoy the video, do well to give it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe and share with your friends.